everyone. So that was a pretty good introduction to me. The closest I can get to development is that my actual day job is developing websites and designing them from scratch. So I can kind of relate. And then, like she said, I organize a monthly speaker series for existing and emerging entrepreneurs and local talks. And actually, Jill was on one of the first panels ever, so I guess I kind of owe her this favor. So. I guess we're just going to jump right in. I want each panelist to introduce themselves, their business, and tell me, would you rather work hard with Justin Trudeau or play hard with Justin Trudeau?
Hi.
Hi.
Great intro. I'm Samantha Cook. I'm the producer and co-founder at Artifact 5, a studio in Montreal making a game called Anamorphine. We started in 2015. And I would rather work hard with Justin Trudeau, because working is fun.
Nice. Hi, I'm Ken Cito, CEO, co-founder of Massive Damage. We just launched our game, Halcyon 6 Starbase Commander, last September. And tomorrow I'm doing a postmortem.
And Justin Trudeau?
Oh, yeah, I'll probably work with him.
Okay.
You go play with him, he'll steal all your girlfriends.
All your girlfriends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey guys, is that working? Hello?
Oh, unmute it.
Is it? Hello? No?
It doesn't seem.
It has a button.
Is this one working?
Yeah.
Here we go. So I'm Yves Bordelot. I'm from Montreal. I'm the general manager at Rogue Factor. We are developing games right now on the Warhammer license, Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40K. And I've been, indie for the last 15 years. Yeah, so it's been a long time. So I can talk about
That's before you was a kid.
And Justin Trudeau, maybe boxing with him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, good answer.
Hi, my name is John Woodkin. I'm a co-founder and tech lead at Kitfox Games. We're most known for Moon Hunters, which we released in March of last year. Currently, we're moving towards releasing our next game, The Shrouded Isle, which will be quarter 2 this year. And as for Justin Trudeau, play hard.
Nice.
Hello. Hey,
We're working now.
Right. My name's Lee. Is it working? Hello? Okay, good. My name's Lee Muehlin. I lead the company Alien Trap.
No, that one's not working.
Okay.
Bad
Just
mic.
put that one down.
Alright. Okay. My name's Lee Muehlin. I lead the company Alien Trap. I think we're most well known for our game Apotheon. And now we're working on a lot of other titles and some VR stuff for some reason. And with Justin Trudeau, I don't know, he seems like a good guy, so I have to be with him, I guess. Yeah.
Hi everyone. So I'm Julian Mood. I actually had been an HR director in gaming studios for years and years, and then I decided to actually start my own company a year and a half ago, and I do HR and PR and marketing for indie studios. So I actually work with a bunch of indie studios. Super fun.
Oh, you're going to swap some of the batteries out? So while we do that, can I get a show of hands for those of you in the audience who would play hard with Justin Trudeau? Okay. I'm guessing you guys are all hard workers then. So this is kind of an interesting question. Do you guys know at what point you were like, okay, I'm going to take the leap, trust my gut, and start my own business? And do you think that there is a right time?
I remember when Steam accepted us, and this was in 2011, and I was kind of like, okay, well now I can actually do it. But that was a time we had to email them like 20 times and hopefully get a response. So that was the moment we thought, okay, maybe we can make some money after this.
For Kitfox, I don't think our company would even exist if it weren't for Execution Labs. So thank you very much, Jason Del Roca, for the opportunity. We kind of jumped at the chance of starting our own studio, and we thought if in 6 months things don't work out, whatever, we'll go back to doing what we were doing previously. So yeah.
The right time, that's a good question. For us, like my first indie studio, Wicked Studios, back in the days when we founded in 2002, it was simply because we were working in a bigger company and it got bought and then the company crumbles and then we were just like, hey, let's start an indie studio. Let's do it. So sometimes it's that little moment when you realize, like, hey, okay, there's something, there's an opportunity there. Let's do it. And I think it's when you have that core team that is together, and you're like, hey, that's awesome. Let's do it.
I started a app studio before I started making games, but that was basically inspired by the iPhone and when the App Store first launched. So we had something out 6 months after the App Store launched, and then did a few apps that did quite well, and then we started making little games on the iPhone, and that kind of led me to basically abandoning that studio and starting just a pure game studio. It was a nice ramp-up process for us.
For me, it was where people met opportunity, I think. I was at a company, and my program at the time was like, hey, I want to leave and make this game, and we're going to apply to Execution Labs, and you should come with me. And I was like, oh man, I don't know, that's kind of a big ask, but he was the best. So I was like, okay, I'll consider that. And then we got into Execution Labs after like 9 months of working on that demo and making everything happen. It was like, all right, well, I guess I am quitting in 2 weeks. Awesome.
I think for me, it was getting tired of a boss that was making bad decisions. It was like all the time thinking, I could do this better. And then being like, why don't I just try it? And it's scary as hell. I don't know if there's ever the right time. Often, it's just you come to a point where you're like, it's now or never. Like, just take the jump. And most often it works and you're so much happier, but it does take a lot of courage. And for me, it actually kind of was a bit of a surprise. Like, I was kind of getting frustrated with, with CEOs and not agreeing with vision. And so I'd actually decided to take a little bit of time and think about, okay, well, what do I want to do? And during that time, there was a new indie studio that was opening, and I was talking to the founder, and he said, oh, it's so great opening an indie studio, but I don't know how to hire a great team. I don't know how to market myself. I don't know how to get visibility at conferences. And I was like, oh my God, I can help with all those things. And so I think often too, it's finding a niche and what you're good at. And I think a lot of times, people say, you have to do what you're passionate about and what you're good at. A lot of people are doing that, but like spreading themselves too thin. And when you actually take the leap and only focus on what you're really good at, you can excel so much farther if you find a good team as well. So in terms of timing, never often the right time, but sometimes just have the courage to do it.
I love that, and I really liked the opportunity meets people. However, that doesn't sound super practical. So you want to jump into the business, and you don't have money. You don't know where to get money. You don't have a business plan. You don't know the first thing about having your own company. And Ken, you kind of have an interesting story with having a really successful crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. What do you think made it so successful? And because that's kind of like a trend these days, what advice would you have for people who are thinking about getting into that?
So that's an hour-long talk I could do, but I'm going to try to truncate it.
That in.
Yeah, I'll truncate it in 2 minutes. I think Kickstarter was actually really interesting. There's one thing I noticed from Kickstarter. There's actually a community in Kickstarter, and it's not necessarily doesn't translate necessarily outside of Kickstarter. So and that community has shifted over the last few years. So I would say, like, I think if you're coming to Kickstarter fresh with no reputation and no IP, that's going to be a tough uphill battle. I think. Then you better bring it with the design and art and like a shit ton of gifts that look amazing. That's basically, that's my 2-minute condensed version.
So for the rest of you guys, did you get grants, subsidies? Like, are there resources out there where you can approach people to help you start a business? Going, again, like the more traditional route?
For KidFox, initially we were, when we were going through the incubator, we were obviously funded by Execution Labs. Mm-hmm. On exit, we were funded by BDC, a convertible loan of $150,000. We also applied to the CMF for Moon Hunters. We also did a Kickstarter for Moon Hunters. So all around, various different funding sources. Currently, even though we've mostly been working on our own IP on the side, we've been doing work for hire as well. So basically, any opportunity there is out there, we jump on it.
Nice. Yeah.
For me, I didn't have a lot of overhead starting, which was ideal. One of the things that I found is definitely look for any possible funding options there are. There's a ton. I took advantage of a YSB of funding here in town that allowed me to hire a lot of people and get funding back, which was a massive help to grow pretty quickly. But I think one of the important things is to find the options that are available and find a person that can really give you good advice. There's tons of options, OMDC, CMF, various provincial grants and funding options out there. So just finding out which ones, and they're different at different times. You need to have certain obligations, so looking through that. So it takes a lot of research, I find, but definitely put in the time because it is worthwhile for sure.
With our first game, Capsize, we had zero money until we actually released it. And that's not what I would suggest in any way. But especially because we were in Saskatchewan at the time, there wasn't really a lot of options for funding. And I tried to stay away from publishers, which I really am glad I did. So we ended up going, the first publisher we went with, they went bankrupt a few months later, we never got paid, the whole story. So the advice I would give is, I think you can do a lot with nothing. So.
That's great advice, actually. You can do a lot with nothing, like you can
But
do
you shouldn't,
sweat.
yeah.
You can, yeah.
You can, but it's also nice to pay people. Like if you're just like a couple of people, like, and you're all equal partners, then yeah, you can do that for a while. But if you actually have employees, you should pay them. I firmly believe that.
That's a good idea.
It's good, and I think that's it's like, oh no, well and you can do, oh yeah, well you have equity and so you'll get money if we ever make money, and like that is valid, but it's hard to do that for like a long period of time, and you probably have a day job at the same time, frankly. So if you actually want to start it, you do want to go to those different organizations and try to get money. And it really is a matter of like, all right, we have no money. Oh, look, someone gave us $10,000. Okay, now someone's giving us $50 and mentorship. Oh, now we can, with our sweat equity and with that, we can leverage that for like CMF in our case. And it's like, okay, like, but you really are scaling up. And I know Eve will say very different things than that, but that was kind of how we got there. But it really is like proof of concept, next proof of concept, next proof of concept.
For us, there was making the jump from a hobby thing to a professional thing where you have employees and payroll and everything. It's such a massive jump, even in terms of time as being the leader. It's just like payroll is the worst thing in the world.
No.
And
I love doing payroll.
Oh, God.
So I think that the advice I would give to a lot of people is to start very small and have some success and then work from there rather than jumping in and doing payroll and being like, we're a company now, I'm the CEO sort of thing. And yeah.
Oh, so when I started my app studio, we actually both water confusion. Both. Actually, I'm not sure if my brother did, but I sold my car. So it was a very nice loaded Mini. I sold it for about $15,000, and that was enough for me and my brother to basically get our first couple apps out, but we were doing apps so early that we actually ended up getting a lot of client business, even though we weren't necessarily looking for it. It just kind of happened. So we actually ended up doing the first subway app for Canada, which is odd. But we were the only guys doing apps in Toronto at the time. So you never know when those opportunities will come up, but start by selling your cars.
Also, too, super quickly, there's some funding talks actually this afternoon, 2 and 3 here, from one indie developer who made a game with no funding and his story, and then from an executive actually at Big Viking Games who's talking about the various funding options. So if you want longer information on that, stick around this afternoon.
Yeah, one thing that we didn't mention is that when I started my first studio, I had a side job. I was working in clubs actually, and some of my employees were coming to the clubs.
That's
when I was
awesome.
so that was pretty neat. But sometimes you just need a little bit of extra help so you can leverage that. That's a really good thing that you can start by investing sweat equity in the company, and then you just get like a small grant or something like that. There's like in many cities. In Montreal, we had a lot of small project grants, basically, like $10,000 there, like $20,000 there, and then at the end you can just take that money and then leverage it with BDC, for instance. They take high risk projects, so you can invest. They can invest in projects like that, and afterwards, like you get like that puzzle into places, and then you will get CMF, or you try bigger bigger ventures like that. So I think it's the best way to do it.
Cool. I'll grab that from you. Thanks. So now you have the money and you need the talent. So Jill, this is obviously your wheelhouse. I want to know, and from all of you guys, what are the top 3 qualities you would look for in your talent when you're hiring them, especially in the indie studio kind of world?
For me, I mean, in terms of qualities, I mean, especially when you're building your own company, I always need to connect with somebody first. I need to trust them when I bring them on. You're trusting them with a lot. You're building a company, so it's such an important thing, especially with your first hires. You know, I always try and look for people that are in the industry. I never post a job and hire. I'm always hiring, you know, those passionate people that you meet at events, you know, that are at game jams all weekend, that are working in the industry, and you can see that passion. You know that, you know, they're dedicated to the industry. But definitely trust is a big one. Entrepreneurial spirits, you know, for me personally, I know how I work, right? So I have a vision and I want to go after it. And so when I bring somebody on, you believe in this vision, let's make it happen. I'm going to look after this, you're going to look after that. I trust people so much to look after something, so I empower them very much. If they don't have an entrepreneurial take action spirit, it's not going to get done, because I'm like, oh great, you're on the same vision. Here's the world of power. I'm empowering you. I trust you. Let's make this happen. So I need someone who buys into that, hardworking, dedicated, but very entrepreneurial. I like people that take on a little too much too, are like, I don't have the experience, but I'm going to do it. Let's make this happen. I'm like, oh my God, we're making it happen. So a lot of enthusiasm too. So it's kind of like I look for people that are similar to me, but good at things that are very different. So that's one huge thing. I know what I'm good at. I know that I am great at building relationships. I know that I'm great at partnerships and outreach. I suck at spreadsheets. I suck at accounting. I suck at details. I'm horrible at it. So when I find people that are amazing at that, I bring them on. I look for people that are excellent at what I'm bad at, and that works out perfectly.
I kind of disagree with everything you just said.
Pretty much.
I really hate managing people, and so people that can manage themselves, that's ideal.
Yeah.
So just independence, working on their own, having a vision of their own and going for it themselves, and then sort of just being part of the idea, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with what we just said. Basically, on a small team, we need people who have initiative. We need people who can just own a particular part of the game and just go at it. And so someone who's self-directed, someone who's very passionate, but at the same time shares the values of the team, shares the goals of the project. That's super important.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the best things, I think, it's the right attitude, like the indie attitude. So sometimes, I've been hiring people from bigger studios, AAA studios, and it doesn't mean because you have 5-6 years of experience in a big studio that you will do well in an indie studio. At Rogue Factor, we usually say having 1 year of experience in a good indie studio is like having 3 years of experience in a big AAA studio, because you need to do all sorts of stuff. And you need to be really, really, autonomous. You need to have that ownership with what you're working on, like you said. It's super important.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I mean, I think a lot of my early hires were people that kind of fit culturally as well. Basically, having that indie and entrepreneurial mindset. And now that our studio is actually fully remote now, everybody works from home, and it's harder to bring somebody on junior when you're in that situation. So you definitely, for us, the next people we hire as we grow will have to have a certain level of experience working on their own, so that you don't have to. My entire team right now, we all work from home, and I don't have to think a moment whether or not they're actually bringing it. You can just tell. Or you just know that they will.
We really wanted to hire people who actually did have experience, not necessarily in AAA, just, we actually gave our tests, and we're like, oh, can you build exactly what we need you to build in the right style? Because what we realized was people look great on paper and their portfolio looks great, and then you give them the art test and you can fail those. You really can. And that was actually a surprise to me as a producer. I'm like, oh, that's not just art, doesn't spring out of nowhere. Wow. So actually finding people with enough experience to do the job, though not necessarily from a specific background, was really important so that we really hit the ground running. Because if you're just getting into the industry, there isn't as much mentorship, right? Everyone here said they want someone who can hit the ground running. And that's really true. So it's actually hard, I think, if you're just getting into the industry to get into a small indie, because even if you're really passionate, you might not have quite the right technical skills yet. So finding people with like just enough experience was a challenge, actually. But yeah, the other thing we like is people who are serious but have a good sense of humor. But that's just our company culture. Like, we're making a really like dark game, but we're all kind of silly people, so it's a little weird sometimes.
Awesome. So actually, to throw it back at you and possibly Eve, you guys have a little bit more of like that project management kind of experience with Agile and Scrum. So maybe you guys can give us a rundown of what that is. But more importantly, once you've built out your team, when do you know that you need to implement processes? And how do you do that?
You can always have processes. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good question. You know, when you're, I don't know, 4 or 5 devs, it's easy to communicate. Basically, you work, when you want to talk about something, you just turn around and have that meeting. When you scale up to maybe like more than 8 people, 10 people, you need to actually implement some kind of, a management process in the studio. Scrum is a very awesome management technique. It's agile. It's something that you do, in a quick way. For those who don't know what Scrum is, it's a management method where you will do small iterations, small bursts, like for instance every 2 weeks, and then you will just work on a feature, and you will work on different teams will work on different features at the same time, and you will every day you will do the little Scrum meeting, like a little stand-up meeting, saying like, hey, what have you done yesterday? What are you doing today? Okay, so is there any problem with what you're working on? So 3 big questions. So and you do that every day, and at the end of the sprint, at the end of 2 weeks, you will have that big meeting when you will review what's going on with the project that you're working on with your team. And it's a very valid method. It's working really well, and I think even if you're a super small team, it's very, very important to just have that little chat every morning.
And we actually use Scrum in our web projects, and what I love the most about it is that at the end of each iteration, you have a minimum viable product. So if you do have to kind of demo that, you have something that's working on like your minimum platform. And then of course it goes to QA and they just break shit. So this is again open to everyone. How hard was it to ship your first game, and do you go the self-publishing route or do you use the help of a publisher? Do you have a preference? Thoughts?
Well, we know Lee doesn't.
Lee's got thoughts. Do we have a mic for him?
Yeah, I mean, I used to have the belief, after I had that publishing first experience, to just avoid publishers like as much as possible. And because I thought, even if you get with a really good publisher, like Devolver or a few other ones that are actually really good, but even if you get with a really good one who supports you, companies can easily be bought, they can change management, things can happen. And with a 3-year-long development cycle, a lot of companies go bankrupt, like what happened to our publisher. But I also kind of think that we've self-published all our games, and I'm starting to really hate having to send emails to YouTubers, having to like manage a marketing campaign. There's so many things that I would love for someone else to do, and I think now it's a different situation. I can see going with something like Devolver or a really good, well-established indie publisher. I would just say do a lot of research, contact other indie devs who have worked with them, and they will be open with you completely. They'll say what's good or bad, and you can make your decision that way.
And on that same note, like, would you guys outsource any parts of your processes, like your marketing or your HR, anything like that?
Oh yeah, woohoo! Yes, everyone should.
Yeah, I think the whole publisher or self-published thing comes down to, I think, your own skill sets. I think it's worth self-publishing for your first go-around, just to learn everything that you don't know for yourself, because I think as a new studio, want to build an audience for your studio and for your games going forward. And I think a lot of the publishers, if they, they're bringing their audience to your game, but they also keep that audience. Like it's, a lot of the people who play like Devolver games, they know Devolver, but not necessarily the team that made Hotline Miami. Even I don't remember the name of that team. I don't know why, but I just remember Devolver. So there's part of that as well. I think publishers, if you can somehow get a publisher to give you money though, and you need that money to build your game, then that answer is pretty obvious as well, if that's the case.
Yeah.
One of the things is publishers right now are mutating basically. It's not like in the early 2000s when you had to have a publisher to publish a game. For instance, like I did a Nintendo DS game back in the days, and you couldn't do a Nintendo DS on your own, like a Nintendo DS game, because you actually had to put a lot of money to print the cartridge. So it was just impossible without a publisher. Right now with Steam, with the App Store and things like that, it's way easier to actually do your stuff and then just pick either a publisher or just like a PR partner or just like someone that can help you out where you're not good at or where you don't have any staff to do the actual work. So I think it's for every project it's different. And like Ken said, if you need money, like I can understand that you can self-publish a game that costs maybe, I don't know, a few hundred grands. But if your game is like, I don't know, $5 million budget, 6 millions, 7 millions, it's pretty hard to do that on your own. So you need a publishing partner that will do like either financing, like co-prod and things like that. So yeah, it depends on the project.
I'd like to build on what Yves just said, and mentioned that it's not just the money, it's an opportunity to help scale the team, help the team gel more, gain experience in certain, like it's a chance to do a project and like someone else is taking the financial risk essentially. For us, what we found was that we valued our independence a lot more, and then we also found that we were managing upwards a lot. But I mean, given the right circumstances, we would say yes to a publisher project again. So. And generally speaking, we'd like to do everything internally as far as the outsourcing questions are concerned.
Cool. Can I?
Yeah, there you go.
For us, for the outsourcing question, we have gone and found someone for PR, which has been helpful because I can only go to so many conferences and speak to so many people and line up so many interviews myself, and I don't always have the network I want to be able to do that fully. So it has been helpful. And QA, we'll outsource QA. I will definitely outsource localization, but everyone does that. The rest, though, mostly in-house. There was one time we considered doing some external art stuff, though, but at the end of the day, we kept it in-house. No, that's not true. We hired a contractor, but we didn't go to India. So there's a small difference in how you can choose to fill your needs. Yeah, and for us too, we were going to self-publish, but we're at the point where we're really close to being done, and we're making sure to not build that bridge into the middle of the river like Jason was talking about. But we actually are we're really close to done. We can see the finish line, but we actually do need extra funding to get there. So it's all right, who wants to get in on the end of a project, which is the best time to get in on a project because it's really safe. So it's hey, you want to come give us a hand and publish us, and maybe get a bigger audience too, which could be nice. So. It's we're looking at both, but at the end of the day, we might have to find someone, even though we were planning on flying solo our first time out.
Cool. So how do you guys measure the success of a project and versus measuring the success of your company and your business?
Curveball.
Money, that's if you're making money, you're successful.
That's the less
bottom line.
Answer.
If your studio still exists.
Yeah, if you're alive, your studio's alive, and you're able to pay your employees, you're successful. That's bottom line. That's it. But success can be measured also with recognition. Like if you're doing something like a game, maybe you've done an incredible game, but it didn't sell well. It can happen. There's a few games that I know that they just tanked, but they are brilliant. but you don't really know why. Like sometimes it's like not the right time to ship a title. Sometimes it's because like it's too early for that type of really out there experience. I don't know. Maybe Sam, you can talk about that. Because when you're doing something that is really different, it can be like super awesome, but at the same time it's risky. It's a big gamble, but I think it's wonderful to do that.
Who you calling weird? It's true, my game is weird and experimental, and people might hate it or love it. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
And I do think about this. I'm like, our game isn't out yet. We've been doing this for almost 2 years. That is a success in a way, like even just getting to that point and being able to like go to conferences and show the game and talk to people. Like we've all learned so much, you know, on the more philosophical side, like we've all learned a lot about ourselves, about games. We've gotten people to give us money. Like those are all successful things. Will the game be successful? I have no idea. And I'd like to think we'll still have been successful in some ways should we not make money. But I would like to make money. That would be nice. I'd like to get to go and do the next game and have more leverage. And, you know, like, that would be good. But success can vary from internal to external metrics.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so success is an interesting term. Like I think our first game we made was a game called Please Stay Calm. It was an early location-based game on the iPhone. Zombie apocalypse meets location. And that game was actually, for us as a 4-person team trying to make a MMO on a phone, that was pretty successful for that. But the code we had was so wretched. Like the server code was, like, it was just so bad. And we, basically, we really failed on that level. Even though we made enough money to grow the studio and everything, there was a couple games after that we tried to make using that same code, and even to upgrade the game itself to keep up with the freemium strategies and monetization, I guess, techniques. It was just impossible to take that game and modernize it as the years went by. Like it ran for like 7 years, this game. So. Yeah, but it really was not viable after maybe 3 because just the code was just so terrible. Just every time you touch something, 200 other things would break, and that was one of the weirdest things, to be basically having the success but doing it so wrong that we were unable to capitalize on it any further, and it actually became a drag on us. Nearly killed the company halfway through. So yeah, that was successful. Yeah.
Question mark?
Yeah.
So we focus a lot on like a financial or business success so far, but for Kitbox, I think certain like a morale or like a lifestyle success is very important. Like if we made like the best game, or like if we made a lot of money, but everyone was miserable and did not want to continue working on anything, like that just defeats the purpose of being an indie game developer. So it's a strange balance, but I mean at some level, like we'd rather be happier and ship a slightly lower quality game than kill ourselves trying to make the best thing possible. Like we're not committed to making any particular dream project. We would never work on something that we didn't want to work on, and obviously anything we do work on should have a business case to support the team size. But all that being said, having a happy team is, I think, the most important thing for us.
I agree with that completely. And one of the things, like when I was thinking about, well, what makes success? And I think, in your first year, it's, being able to, pay your staff. And that is so true. Like for me, being able to pay the staff and have them happy is definitely number one. But in terms of working with people, when you get to a point where you can turn down clients because you don't want to work with them, like when I meet people, and they want to work with us on a contract, and I don't like their business model, I don't like them as a person, being able to say no, we're going to stick and we're going to be happy. We're going to work with people that are good to the team, that treat the team well. I think that feels like success to us for sure.
And if you're on a panel at CGX, I guess you're pretty successful.
Definitely, yeah. No.
So I'm gonna throw it out to you guys. Do you have any questions for our panel? All the tough questions. Anyone? Sir.
What advice do you have I'm a teacher at Algonquin. What advice do you guys have for the students that are in this room, I can see a whole blackload of people that I know in here that want to start their own studio. What's the one thing that you can tell them that they should be doing first?
Making a great game with side projects.
We actually started our first game as a student game. It was myself and my partner Jesse, who lived in Toronto, and I lived in Saskatoon at the time. We decided to make it both our fourth-year projects, and then made a game after that. So really, I think just make a game. Just make anything. Even if it's unsuccessful, at least you have a game under your belt that you can work and make something else with.
Yeah, it's true. My game also, Anamorphine, it was started by my two other co-founders, like, in university, and it was this hobby, weird project, and then they slaved away, like, for a year after that to actually, you know, get a cool slice that they could show at Montreal Demo Night, and people liked it, and that's what made them realize that they should really actually start a company, right? So getting something and then validating if it's good or not is important. And honing your skill, just like, not making games just for the sake of making games, although that is fine, but like doing it to learn and get better is good, because, you know, if I'm going to give you an art test, you want to be able to pass my art test.
I think there's a step beyond, like just before that, that if you're just jumping into the business, like why are you doing this? Like why do you want to do this? You have to know your motivation. There's different kinds of indie studios. Maybe you want to work for AAA first, but like why do you want to start a business right now? Because there's a lot of baggage that you have to deal with that you probably don't actually care about. Like you probably care more about making a particular game idea, right? So why now? Why take on all this risk is what I would ask myself.
Yeah, that's true. I think also before that, even before
Yeah,
that, like just you're learning, you're at school. Just honestly try to focus on something really specific and try to be the best at it. Don't just go around, like for instance, for artists, for instance, like don't do like 3D animation, 3D sculpting, 3D blah 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 blah. No, just focus on something and just kick ass.
Yeah.
And then find other people that have different skill set than yours, create a little core team, do a little project, then you're good to go. It's like in Zelda, you know, don't venture in there alone.
Yeah.
Grab the sword or grab a, you know. So you need a bunch of people around you to do something cool, I think. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, mostly I think even the process of putting together a team and laying out your idea for a game and trying to basically, just even the process of designing a game it doesn't even matter if it succeeds or fails. I mean, it'd be nice if it succeeds, but that will just teach you so much about just teamwork, thinking about game mechanics. I think a lot of people think they can design a game because they love playing games, and it may be partially true, but I feel like there's I'm good at the idea side of things, but my lead designer on my team just kicks my ass when it comes to just laying down mechanics and breaking it all down. And I'll get inspiration when I'm playing games, like, oh, I like the way how they did that. I think we could try this way in our games. But being able to take that and just reduce it down to numbers and mechanics and loops, that's a very specific skill that it's very hard to just teach. Like, you have to basically try making games in order to learn that.
One more thing. The reason my programmer came to me and said, we want you to come start this company with us, is because they had the artist and the programmer, and they needed a third person. This is, the Execution Labs basically said, you have to have three because you need someone who's going to focus on business and focus on all the things that aren't the game. And I think if you've learned anything from this panel, it's that we didn't really talk about making games, we talked about making companies, right? And there's a huge difference. And they're entwined, but you really do need someone to focus on the big picture while someone else works on the game, because trying to do both is really hard. Even though I'm full-time focusing on like more of the business than the game, my co-founders still have to focus on the business too, and like it's so much work. So you'll also learn a lot from working for other people. Having a boss is not always bad. You will definitely learn good and bad things, like what you don't want, what you do. Like you can learn so much from working for other people. So going indie right away, like it might be more trials by fire than you want.
Good advice. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just curious. This morning we saw a good talk on an innovative game that was different in terms of its mode of operation, right? You keep talking and no one explodes. You were looking at a different way of playing the game, which was innovative. I was just curious to get each of the panelists. You were starting at
already working in VR, but I would probably continue to work in VR, and finding new ways to innovate in that is fun. And we're getting our mixed reality headset from Xbox soon. Like, I was in the right place at the right time and like got my code for that. So I don't know that we're actually going to experiment with that, but it's so new. Anything that's that new can be really fun to play with. But there's also still value in just iterating on older types of tech or themes if you just have a bright new idea. But new tech is fun.
Just to add something,
Yep.
like it's true. If you want to start something and be just a little bit more on the safe side, sometimes it's really good to just build up on something you know really well and something that is established, something like a genre that you know is popular, you know it's going to work, add a little something on top of it. And I think that's the best way. It's the safest way.
Yeah, I was basically going to say something like that, where I would say market research is actually something that a lot of people don't do enough. You know, you really need to understand the market you're jumping into, like what games are out there for the audience that you're trying to reach out to. And if you're making a game for yourself that you would love playing, who are you, and is there more people like you? I mean, it's how we came up with the initial design pillars for Halcyon 6 was, I missed games like Star Control 2, and I was like, there's nobody making these games, and FTL was amazing, but there's no follow-on, and there's no like, so I decided to make a JRPG style combat game with spaceships, which nobody else had, which that helped us a lot, because, you know, there's a niche that wasn't being filled, and I saw that, you know, there's lots of other games like it, but not particularly, you know, didn't fill that slot, and that's a good, I think that's a very smart way to approach it too, not just being innovative, but being innovative for an audience that's not being served.
To add on to what Ken said, yeah, like tech isn't necessarily like what you need to innovate on, but if that's what you're passionate about, I mean, no one should stop you from doing that. There's not necessarily a good business case for doing VR necessarily, but if you really want to, then, you know, like that's going to be the base of the value of your company, right? For KidFox, we're not a very tech-oriented company. So like as much as I personally would love to make stuff in VR, as a team right now, we can't justify the case for making a commercial project in VR. We might start prototyping things in VR and look for opportunities for partners that'll help us make VR projects. But currently, you know, as much as I'd love to, we don't. And so, yeah, like it's a question of like, are you a tech focused are you a high tech focused company, or like are you a game company? Like you could innovate in design as well, right? So.
We are doing a VR game as our main project now. That's what I spend most of my time, way too much time on. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense business-wise right now in any way. If you look at the VR market, what releases on Steam, if you were part of the initial launch lineup for the Vive, you were pretty successful because there wasn't a lot of games. But now you're lucky. I guess just check out Steam's Vive for yourself to see like how what the market's actually like. But the way that I have approached VR development is I view it as a very long-term thing, and I view the project as very long-term. So with our game Modbox, it's a very physics sandbox game that we can continually add to, that we see new innovation other people are doing, we can add it to Modbox. It's kind of a do-anything sort of world-builder game. But if I was doing, I think just making like a 2-hour VR experience right now where someone buys for $15 and you spend $1 million on, that would not be a good idea. Because the market is probably like, you get about, the best case scenario is like 10,000 sales, which is not enough for a very big project. So I think you can do innovative stuff, it's just that you have to focus on the right things. So if you're making a HoloLens app, the market isn't here now, but you're hoping that the market will be there in 5 years, and you'll be one of the people in it when that comes.
Well, those are all awesome answers. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I'm going to speak for the panelists and say if you have a question for them, you can approach them later. But can we give them a round of hand? Thank you.